So CanJam ended 5 days ago. I was in Singapore on the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th, and I flew back home on the 8th of April. So I did attend CanJam like I tend to for, especially the Singapore CanJam because it's close to where I live, and for the longest time I've been into high-end IEMs, which I still continue to be, but I have also, ventured back into headphones full throttle. So I did spend a lot of times trying to try headphones that I've not tried before. Headphone amps, stacks. I bought a bunch of things, and of course, some of the most fabulous IEMs ever produced. And this CanJam was about IEMs in significant ways. But of course, because a lot of you who follow my work will know, I'm also really now massively dabbing into headphones. I'll talk about headphones as well. So behind me, you see my rack. I'm pretty proud of where my stable stands at present, and maybe I'll do a separate review discussing my stable and my chain and my preferences, just so as you get an update on my reference points. Because we all perceive sound in a very subjective fashion, right? And even our preferences for sound undergoes and undertakes a bit of a journey. So let's say, for example, in my case, I do token for sub bass much more than I used to when I began the hobby. I do like air frequencies a lot more than I used to when I began the hobby. I do token for mid range a little less than I used to when I began the hobby. Okay, so that's just by way of disclaimer. Singapore is just amazing. The way I'll break down this sort of live review, so to speak, is I will first and foremost talk about headphones. I have a bunch of photos in front of me, so I'm reminded of what headphones to talk about. I'll then cover electronics. I'll talk about IEMs. So I hope that breakdown makes sense to some of you. So Singapore is very close to my heart. I have been to Singapore since I was young because my grandfather, when I was very young, was in Singapore for 2 years undergoing treatment. So that was a time when I was really impressed with how the country, the city state, was growing in terms of economic progress, in terms of its cleanliness, in terms of its technology. And Singapore is very high tech. It's one of the most high tech cities in the world. So you feel that. So there's a certain amount of civility that I feel every time I go to Singapore. And people are very international in their mindset. It is a very small country, so people are very welcoming of outsiders. I think a significant portion of Singaporean residents are actually foreigners. They treat foreigners really well with a lot of respect. Singaporeans have a very international outlook, and a lot of people I speak to, a lot of cab drivers I've spoken to, I've had conversations with them that I wouldn't with professors in different countries, honestly, in terms of their just depth of knowledge. So, and Singaporean cuisine is awesome and it's just spectacular as a matter of fact. So with that sort of mindset, I tend to visit CanJam, right? It's a lot about Singapore and in addition to audio products, right? It's a lot about my friends also. I've made some very good friends over time in Singapore. So I began day one. I began day one with a nice breakfast at the Pan Pacific, which is where the venue is for CanJam. And a big shout out to Head 5 for choosing this venue because Pan Pacific in Singapore is just so conveniently located. It's near the Marina Bay Sands, which is this very premium hotel plus commercial property. A lot of you might know of this property because of David Beckham, who's the brand ambassador for this property, and it's just a stunning mall. So Pan Pacific is close to Marina Bay Sands. Pan Pacific is just very convenient to get to, and you can get to Pan Pacific from the airport very quickly. The concierge, the check-in process was all very amazing. We got a very nice room, and I woke up in the morning, had breakfast, and at 9 in the morning, I took a Grab, which is like an Uber in East Asia. It's a Singaporean company that has operations elsewhere as well. I took a Grab and I went to see my friend Gavin, who goes by Roasty on Headfi. And the reason why I went to see Gavin is that I was still debating between holding on to my Audma Maestro HPA1, which is a $10,000 amplifier from a recent newish company. So this newish company is called Audma. It's based out of Italy. Cesaro is the brains behind Audma. I've never met Cesaro. I've emailed back and forth with him, but I have it on good authority. He's a very sound engineer. No, I mean pun intended, I suppose. And Cesaro has come out with this ELISA circuit. This ELISA circuit is this way in which he does crossfeed because he wants people to experience a sort of crossfeed that is not available in the current market today. And honestly, he's able to pull that off because the ELISA circuit on the Audma Maestro HPA1, which is a beautiful amplifier. And for photos, guys, I'll link impressions I've posted on HeadFi. I've done 2 sets of impressions on CanJam. So I'm not going to read out from impressions, of course. This is more of a stream of consciousness, but you do want to read the impressions I posted on HeadFi if you want greater, or if you just want more perspective and photos of some things I've talked about. So I was struggling to decide if I need to buy the Riviera Labs AIC 10, which, despite its $19,800 price tag, has somehow taken the Summit Fi section of the HeadFi hobby by storm. And one of the testaments to this is that if you venture into the HeadFi page of Riviera Labs AIC 10, which is this gorgeous amplifier, it's sort of elongated in its shape. It's reasonably powerful. It's 10 watts into 8 ohms. It has a tube preamp stage. If you ever go into the HeadFi thread for AIC 10 Riviera, you will see that it has about 250 pages worth of discussions from headfires, which is quite mind-boggling for an amplifier, a headphone amplifier at this price point of $19,800, which is insanity. So I mean, I would have never even thought that I would want to get an amplifier at this price point, honestly, even until 6 months ago. But I sort of, I waded my way back into the headphone section of the hobby, and ever since I've done that, I've just, as often happens, I just upgraded really, really fast. Really, really fast. And it all started with the Focal Clear, working for me with this Hyphaman Serenade DAC amp, which is an amazing DAC amp from Hyphaman. And it was an organic presentation for the Focal Clear. The Arctur Himalaya chip in the Serenade is just astounding. And then I was like, you know what? I want to get the Mola Mola Tambaki because I heard the Tambaki, and the Tambaki was a phenomenal DAC. And it's obviously a little more well known in the 2-channel section of the hobby. At a local dealer, I got the Tambaki in. I was just blown away. And then I was like, I have the Tambaki. I need a better amp. I want to try the Imanis. And then I tried the Imanis. That was last year's CanJam, and I was blown away. And then I kept trying the Imanis. I kept visiting Singapore. And Sean of SLT Technologies, a big shout out to Sean for hooking us up with that sort of Imanis audition experience that you did last year. It was in August, I think, and we went to Sean's house. He ordered pizzas for us. A bunch of the Singapore Summit fires came into his house, and we experienced Imanis. There were 5 sets of Imanis in that day, and it was another bit of a CanJam for me. And then I bought it. So all that to say, I upgraded very fast. And then I bought the Audma Maestro HPA1 because I tried it at Sean's house. And it was just astounding with the Imanis because the Audma made the Imanis very slammy, very wide. The ELISA circuit is unlike any other crossfeed in the market, and I've never heard anything like this. It is friggin' awesome, let me just say. So if you want a solid state amp, the Audma HPA1, I know it's a little known company, but I've been working with them for 6 months now. And they're extremely professional to deal with, like customer service first. So I can vouch for Audma Maestro HPA1, which I don't often say, right? I don't often say this sort of, a thing for manufacturers. And I was skeptical, and I was very skeptical, but they won me over. They gave me a lot of peace of mind with their service, and they replaced my amp because my first amp was so powerful that I was getting, the second amp is also equally powerful. I was getting hum with my Focal Clears, not of the normal headphone output. The Audma HPA1 has this insane series of dip switches. And even with no dip switch turned on, even with no additional gain, you can run an Imanis of the single-ended using single-ended inputs. So it's that powerful. But I wanted a little more slam and punch, and you get that if you use the dip switches. So when I did that, I got a bit of a hum with my Audma Maestro HPA1A. Never with the Imanis, never listening levels, only when I was just experimenting, when I was not listening, and I was using their very sensitive headphones, like the Focal Clear, and I was turning the volume all the way up. And of course, it could have been my home circuitry, my wall socket, and all that, right? But I was uncomfortable, and I didn't want to spend $10,000 amp on an amp and get a bit of a hum. So I started looking elsewhere, and I wanted to get the Riviera because Riviera has become so revered and respected. And everyone who owns Riviera sort of pressures you into wanting to buy one because it looks amazing. And I haven't seen many audio products look like they're $20,000, and pictures don't do the Riviera justice. But if you ever see the Riviera AIC-10, it looks like $1 million. It looks like a $20,000 object. Even the XLR output, and I'll show you guys in a future video, the single-ended output, the knobs, the machining on the faceplate, and the heat sinks, it just looks ridiculously premium. And yes, I am a sucker for aesthetics, and I do want to engage more with things that look as good as Riviera does. So that happened, and bunch of people on HeadFi, Eyal Goldberger, who's just an amazing guy, who's set up the water cooler headphone section of the hobby. My buddy Gavin, who swears by the Riviera, a bunch of others, I've spoken to, started pushing it. And, I mean, when I say pushing it, I say that they were pushing it with love, encouraging, sharing their love of the unit. So I went to Gavin's house the morning of Singapore CanJam. So usually I'm there at CanJam just when CanJam starts. But on this occasion, I was like, you know what? CanJam can wait. I want to go to Gavin's. So I went to Gavin's house because I wanted to. So I'm also trying to get the Abyss AB12665TC in because I missed that headphone. I used to wear it until I got neck spasms, and I can't attribute it entirely to the Abyss, if at all, because it could well be a bunch of other things, my posture, my PC, and all that, right? But because I had neck spasms, let me put it this way, I stopped using the Abyss. And then I started missing it because nothing really does heavy metal like the Abyss does. And the Manus gives you such a great taste of what the Abyss can do because the Manus is like an enhanced Abyss in most ways, right? It's just like, it even has a tuning like the Abyss, except it's the mid-range is a little more romantic, a lot more romantic. It's bigger in staging and imaging, and the resolution is just a step above the Abyss. But the Manus does bass really well. It's very punchy and it's very tactile, and it just somehow reminded me and I wanted to get the Abyss in again. I wanted to know basically what the Abyss sounds like of my Audma Maestro HPA1 at Gavin's because he had the Abyss and he also has the Manus. And I wanted to try the Manus and Abyss, which were going to be my two headphones, which will be my two headphones, I hope, and then I'll be done, in addition to the 4Cal Clear that I have. I wanted to try these two headphones on both the Audma HPA1 and the Riviera Labs AIC-10 and see how they fare. Now, what happened is, both these headphones sounded amazing of the Audma. Manus, of course, is something that I'm acquainted with because I own it and I've tried it of the Audma. The Abyss I haven't because my Abyss hasn't reached me yet. And I should have been done with that, right? And just to sweeten this experience, Gavin shared with me his EQ profiles that he's created using a bunch of EQ profiles he's found on the internet from Oratory and a bunch of others for the Abyss and the Manus. And his EQ profile, I'm not a huge EQ person at all, but his EQ profiles just rock. Like literally rock because it makes the Abyss less shouty in the mid-range, less dry in the mid-range, less brittle in the treble. It just makes the Abyss more human and more civilized in how it sounds. And not to diss the Abyss, it's just the Abyss is meant to sound powerful and good for heavy metal, but the EQ Gavin has come up with makes it sound more well-rounded and a little more all-rounderish, which is amazing. And he also has an EQ profile with just two bands with a bass shelf, I think, and a bit of a cut in the air frequencies for the Manus. And with just these two bands, the Manus even becomes even better. So I had no reason to want to buy the AIC Riviera because the Audma does everything I could ever want with the Abyss and the Manus. However, experiencing the Riviera in this on his beautiful wooden furniture, which is designed himself, with the sunlight streaming in, and making the Riviera all lit up and just beautiful, and it's sort of red LED flashing, and then he had the Amperex Bugle Boy tube inside. which was so beautiful with the Abyss and the Riviera. The Abyss mid range, which sucks, but on the Riviera AIC, it just became very beautiful. It became mellow, it became warm, it became very Susvara like. And that's when I decided, you know what, this CanJam has to wait. I'm gonna buy the Riviera AIC 10, and I didn't pay $19,800. I got a discount, and I do want to do a shout out to Mohan Valu of Audio Exotics. And in the description section of this video, once this live is posted, I will leave a link to his website. I will leave his WhatsApp number if you're in Singapore or anywhere else in Asia, because he's got a dealership in Hong Kong as well, and I think he ships across Asia. He's an astounding gentleman. He's extremely erudite. I've spoken to him about Indian politics, Bangladeshi politics, China, trade wars, tariffs, because I was waiting for my wife to arrive with the money to buy the AIC when I was in his showroom. Audio Exotics is the name of his showroom. It's in this very strange, I shouldn't use the word strange, but it's this unexpectedly commercial sort of warehousey situation. But once you go in, you're taken to a different universe, because he's got $1 million setup, just an amazing setup, and he's a dealer for Riviera Labs. And I soon learned Riviera's AIC 10, despite being $20,000, is not like the highest end stuff that they carry. They have these monoblocks and preamps that are more expensive, and Riviera Labs is an insane company. Shout out to Mohan Valu of Audio Exotics for hooking me up with Riviera. So I bought the Riviera, went back to CanJam. So my CanJam I thought was done. Little did I know that I was in for a lot of more fun. So I had spent a bunch of money before my CanJam began, which is basically the preface I wanted to give you. So that would have colored my impressions of CanJam, right? That would have made me satisfied and not really concerned with what's out there, because I've ordered an Abyss, I own an Imanis, and the Mola Mola Tambaki to come home to, and I have the Audma Maestro HPA1 to come home to, and now I have the Riviera AIC 10 to come home to, right? So what is there for me to experience at CanJam, especially in the headphone section of the hobby? Little did I know that I would be wowed. So moving on now to CanJam impressions, and I thought this introduction would be useful for those of you thinking of high-end stuff, right? High-end amps, and a lot of people are, so I just wanted to indulge in this sort of long-winded discussion before now move on to show floor impressions. Okay, show floor impressions wise, starting with headphones first. I have some pictures in front of me. So the Carbon 2 from Odyssey really struck me as impressive, because the Carbon 2 is different from the Carbon 1 for sure. I can't claim I've had a lot of time with the Carbon 1. It's mostly been show conditions, and once in a store in Bangkok, Mangkong Gadgets, where I've spent a week with the Carbon 1. So I do know the Carbon 1 well, and I've tried it out different E-Stat amplifiers from Wu Audio and even Hyphaman. The Carbon 2 is a very good headphone that deserves more credit, more praise. It's not as resolving as the Stax X9000 is. Very few headphones are. But it's got a better tone. It's got a better tonality. It's got a better bass. It's got a palpable bass. It's not a planar bass or the Imanis bass. It's good bass. It's good bass. It sounds fairly wide. I would consider buying it because it still has the E-Stat ethereal magic, a little less so than the Stax headphones, but it still has that hybrid planar E-Stat sort of sound, and very few headphones these days, I think, are so well tuned. So it's very well tuned. It sounds natural. It sounds neutral. It sounds well rounded, and it was being driven off an i5 Phantom, which I don't think was the right synergy, because the i5 Phantom is a very thick and creamy sound. That's sort of the i5 house sound. It was being carried by AV1, and AV1 is a great dealer in Singapore. They're based out of Adelphi Mall, and I loved working with them. I've bought stuff from them. I've auditioned stuff there. And a big shout out to AV1. They had an amazing booth. So the Carbon 2 stood out, and that was the first headphone I tried because I wanted to hear the Carbon 2. And I do think I'll get it in and do a full review, and I do think it might be the best tuned E-Stat right now available on the market, given my preferences, because I do want my headphones to be all genre headphones. Okay, the other headphone that blew me away, and I can't tell you what the pricing is of this headphone because I don't think it's been announced yet, is the Infinitum. Infinitum, it's from Melodic Artification. So Melodic Artification is basically an IM company, or that's how I knew them. Vicky Lam is their owner, and I've Facebooked with her. I almost struck a deal to buy her IM, get it in for review, but I stopped because of several reasons. Mostly the fact that her IMs, which were beautiful open back IMs, were great, but I was indexing for really flagship stuff at that time, and I think her IM was around the $2,000 mark and also performed in that sort of mark. But this headphone is just astounding. The Infinitum from Melodic Artification. It's not released yet. It has this crazy grill work that looks very different from anything I've ever seen. They have a proprietary planar technology. The best thing about the headphone was that it had a very warm and very hard hitting bass. Like the bass was pounding, and it did feel like it was just sub bass. It felt like it was a pretty well rounded bass. But the mid range was present and it was clear and it was extended. So with the headphones on, I got a soundstage that was a bit wider than what I'm used to. So I was like, kudos, Vicky. This is a great headphone, and this is a really good headphone. This is like if HD800S, because I'm saying this because of the staging, married the Focal clears, right, with regard to the sub bass and I suppose the pinna gain, and just produced a more natural sound. So that's basically what it sounded like, and I do think it sounded a little more premium than these two headphones. So I don't think it'll be like a $2,000 headphone. I'm not exactly sure what the pricing will be. Could be 3K, could be 4K. I of course do not hope it will be more than $3,000 or $4,000. I think it'll be very competitive if it's within $3,000 and $4,000. The other headphone that I think blew me away, and I tried this at Gavin's as a matter of fact, and it was the first headphone that blew me away in Singapore, is the Abyss JOAL or JOAL. Let me just call it JOAL. The Jack of all trades, which is a hideous name. I think JOAL might not be a hideous name, but once you start doing the acronym, it starts sounding weird. It is the Jack of all trades, and maybe Abyss really wanted to make the point that they're getting away from their headphones tuning, which has typically been very terrible in mid-range. Like Abyss headphones in the upper mids have always sucked for me. It just sucks the life out of mid-range. I'm still a huge fan of the Abyss 1265 TC, despite the fact that it's got a weird mid-range. I think it's the second best headphone on the planet, but the mid-range does suck for the Abyss 1266. It's terrible, which is why I have a Riviera now, and people use EQ, and people should. But the JOAL doesn't have that issue. The JOAL somehow doesn't sound like an Abyss in mid-range. It is an Abyss headphone, so you get that sort of very authoritative bass. You get that sort of slam, and you get that sort of stage, and you get a lot more resolution than I think you're paying for with $2,000. But the JOAL also has a nice sort of mid-range take, and given how far Abyss has come with how they do mid-range, all the way from the Abyss 12665 TC to now a JOAL, which sounds almost like a ZMF in mid-range, I think these guys deserve an award for diverting from their house sound while retaining the best elements of their house sound. So I do hope the JOAL sells. And I, of course, get nothing from saying this. I've never had anything bought. I never bought anything from Abyss, ever. I don't even think I ever bought anything from Abyss or from any dealer of Abyss on a discount even. But anyway, the larger point is, the JOAL is a phenomenal headphone. I really don't like that aesthetic. It reminds me of the Diana, and the Diana was one of my first flagship headphones. And I just hated the Diana, right? So I don't like that aesthetics. It's weird. It doesn't look like a headphone. I don't like the way the cups are designed. I don't like the headband. But I have to say this was comfortable. If you aren't subjectively biased towards that aesthetics, like I think I might be, it's just a damn home run. The JOAL might be the headphone of CanJam. Okay, Austrian Audio Composer is a headphone that I tried for the first time. My friend Gaurav, based in India, has been raving about it. He wants me to try this. It's a beautiful headphone. It's got the dynamic driver, naturalism of timbre. The Austrian Audio Composer is very light. It looks good. It's got a weird banana plug system with two prong jacks going in, which I don't appreciate because then you can cable roll, and cable rolling is fun, and why would you deprive audiophiles of more fun? But the Austrian audio composer sounds complete. It sounds lovely in mid range. It sounds timbly right. Its bass is absolutely fine. Might not be the final word on bass extension, but who really cares if it sounds good? It sounds good. It sounds stagey and wide as well. The final audio D8000 DC Pro was just another headphone that wowed me, and it could well be one of the top 10 headphones on the planet, and one of the flagships I would consider owning because it is so well rounded. Yes, some people will say that the DC 8000 Pro is not as resolving as Utopia, or let's say, certainly not as a Susvara, but it does bass better than the Susvara, way better. It's got a sub bass. Susvara doesn't really hit that hard no matter what you drive it with, unless it's an AIC 10, which then really colors Susvara bass and can make the Susvara bass slammy. But the Susvara will never slam like an Abyss or even an Imanis. DC D8000 Pro or D8000 DC Pro is also feathery light compared to the previous headphones. Floats. The ear pads are made out of divine wool, because I was shocked with how comfortable and lightweight the D8000 DC Pro was. And then on top of that, the tonality, they just nailed it. It does bass really well, and it does mid-range really well, it does treble really well. Forget graph for this one. This one just hits the tonality out of the park. And I do know it's got detractors who have started saying that the final audio headphones do not have the kind of resolution that they want for that price point. And once that sort of association comes out, people tend to think of that more and more, and they think they're not getting what they paid for. But I mean, if you care about tonality, which you should, because long term, I mean, you do end up using superstars and specialists like the Abyss a lot. But I do think generalists also deserve a mention, because generalists are very scarce in our hobby, in the headphone section of flagships, because most flagships tend to do something or the other really well. The D8000 DC Pro deserves a lot of praise for being a flagship that does everything well, even if its resolution is just a bit lacking. And a shout out to Project Perfection, who is carrying the D8000 Pro. They're dealer of Stax as well, the dealer of Final Audio and Dita. And they're awesome to deal with. One of the best experiences you'll have in Singapore or Asia. D8000 Pro enthusiasts, or if you're enthusiasts of Stax or Dita Audio, do check out Project Perfection in Adelphi Mall, and they will hook you up. Some of the best guys to work with. Ted is one person I worked with at Project Perfection. He's got a review channel, a YouTube channel. I think it's called Super Chunk Reviews. He does very candid, very friendly sort of vibes in his reviews. He's great to talk to. He's always pleasant, always happy to chat with you, always smiling. A very intelligent guy. And I love working with him. So that's it for Final Audio. A couple of other headphones that stood out. The Dunu Arashi. I love the name. The Dune Arashi is an amazing headphone. It looks stunning. It looks like the OG Stax Omega. It's lightweight. It looks premium even, and it sounds like a $3,000 headphone. I would say it doesn't sound like a $1,500 headphone. It sounds expensive. It's got a perfect tonality, and again, perfect tonality is hard to get right. I mean, think of all the classics. Like the Sennheiser HD8600 doesn't do bass well. I don't care what other people are saying. The Sennheiser HD800S doesn't do bass well. The Hyphen Aria or any of these Hyphen headphones, they don't do bass well either. They can be sharp and piercing in the treble. Yes, I mean, you can tune it with the right source and it can become the best thing on the planet, and I've talked about that. But when you have something that does everything well, it deserves praise, especially from a first-time headphone manufacturer like Dunu. So I really enjoy Dunu's Arashi, and a big shout out to Dunu for that. Never done any business with them. I bought my Dunu headset used on Head5 from my buddy One-Eyed Hitos. Shout out to you as well. Okay, the Yamaha YH5000 SE is a gorgeous headphone, steampunky vibe, lightweight. It sounds warm and thick and beautiful, and I just didn't understand why people hate it. I was sitting next to my friend Ganesan, who goes by Innocent Blood on Head5, a Singaporean guy, awesome guy. He's got a crazy setup as well. He's also friends with Gavin, so we tend to hang out a bit when we end up in CanJam together. Ganesan was spending a lot of time at CanJam, like he does, which is awesome. So I got him at the Jabin booth. Jabin is another very reputable store in Singapore at Adelphi. First store once you walk in on the right. Uncle Wilson runs it. He's a bit of a legend. So I walk into the Jabin booth. I see my friend Ganesan trying the Yamaha, and I walk up to him and I'm like, "Hey, how is the Yamaha?" Because I was really attracted to what the cable looked like. It looked like a chain, like a proper metallic chain, but it wasn't made of metal. It's pretty ergonomic as well. It's a beautiful headphone. So I like the aesthetic. So I said, "Hey, my friend Ganesan, what do you think of the Yamaha?" So he said to me, "This is not as bad as people say it is. Why do people hate it?" And I put it on. I said, "Hey, let me try it." And so I tried it. And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why people hate the Yamaha or hate on the Yamaha. We figure it's because of the price. Or maybe people tried it on very warm chains, so maybe it might have sounded muddy or whatever. But it's a beautiful headphone, and I would love to get it in at some point. I just don't want to pay the retail price for that, and I want to pay far less because it doesn't sound like a $5,000 headphone. It sounds more like a $3,000 headphone. It competes with like an Austrian audio composer, I think. And the Dune Arashi would be just like a hair behind it, right? But the Yamaha is a good headphone, and if you can get it used, do check it out. That's it in terms of headphones I like. The Sendy Audio Peacock was, I think, a very interesting headphone, and it was very musical and lush. Guys, I do want to talk about IEMs. It's already been a 30-minute live. I'll leave links to a bunch of things, all these stores that I'm talking about in Singapore. I'll leave links to Audi Exotics WhatsApp number if you want to get in touch with him and make an audition happen for an AIC Riviera, for example. And I'll leave links to my HeadFi impressions posts where I have discussed all these products with photos, right? IEMs. I didn't try everything. There were way too many IEMs. Way too many good ones. Singapore just has a plethora of IEMs, and at this year's CanJam, the quantity of IEMs on display, I don't think I could have covered in 5 days because I was stopping and I was hanging out in Singapore. I was meeting friends. It just wasn't about trying products for me. And there were things I spent more time with, right? So I tried a few. I'll say the top 3 things that stood out for me were the Brise Audio Fukagu, the Mystery Craft Hex, and the Dita Audio Ventura, which had 2 prototypes. I like both. The Dita Audio Ventura is an amazing prototype, and they're both great. There was a white one and a black one. The black one was warmer, the white one was a little more airy, and I'm waiting to see which one Dita goes with. But Dita does a sizable stage in an IEM, and image height, and organic timbre, and depth, and note clarity and definition, and the way in which the bass notes decay, and you hear signals, low level signals like echoing across the stage front to back, spatiality. So in terms of stage spatiality, atmospherics, it reminds me of a Susvara because Susvara does atmospherics so well. It was a sound I fell in love with, and I'm really waiting to see when it comes out, and I hope to get it in and do the review justice because Dita Audio hits it out of the park. And I was one of the first persons who bought the Dita Audio Perpetua a couple of CanJams ago, and I talked it up because I loved it. And people loved it, and people bought it on my recommendation. And it took them a while, but once they did, because Dita Audio was not as known at that time, people loved it. And of course, Dita has become a better known brand since then with the Dita Audio Mecca, which is great, and reviews forthcoming for that. And so Dita rocks. The Dita Ventura is going to wow you guys, so I'm very excited about that. Of course, these are not as expensive gets. I'm not exactly sure what Dita will price their IEM at, but it certainly will not be $18,000, which is what you end up paying, is what I hear if you get a Brise Fukagu. Brise Audio Fukagu is an $18,000 set. You get an IEM, you get a cable from Brise, which is obviously a famous cable manufacturer, and you get this energizer unit or an amp. It looks premium. The images are huge, and as soon as I heard images and the bass, I was like, I get the hype. I do get the hype of the Brise Audio Fukagu. It's possibly the best headphone system on the IM system on the planet. But I don't get the pricing, guys. I mean, I just don't. It's not a $19,000 unit or an $18,000 unit. It's just not. And I mean, I don't care how much the cable costs, and I don't really care how much their tuning, how much hard work went into the um, IM construction, this tech. Being having been in consulting and finance, and I work with pricing. I can't say I'm an expert, of course, when it comes to audio tech and pricing of audio tech. Neither am an expert on pricing people's labor, people's hours. So Masuda-san of Maskobo can price his time any way he wants, right? Like, let's say, for example, I'm a consultant and I do a bunch of work for different international multilaterals. I can charge whatever I want. I can charge $1,000 for my daily input. I can charge $5,000 for my daily input, right? If someone wants to pay, that's all power to me. So I get that. But you also have to have a balance with which you see pricing, and you also have to be wary of price gouging and the creation of a seller's market, which I do think is inevitable in the luxury sections of any products, whether it's cars, wallets, bags. I mean, a brand can charge $10,000 for a bag, and you will buy this not just because it's worth $10,000. A lot of Dior bags apparently cost $50 to make, but of course, I'm not talking about Dior when I talk about $10,000 bags. I'm talking about others, and there are even more expensive Birkin bags and all that, right? So my point is, people buy it because it's rare, it's premium, it signals something to society that you've arrived, and there's of course craftsmanship and design and aesthetics. The Brise Audio, I get all that, and I'm into luxury. I love luxury. I do believe in a life of hard work and making money and spending money. I love spending money judiciously. I hope. I know. I do. I am a finance advisor, so I do care about that. But I still don't think the Brise Audio is a $19,000 setup. I think they should have priced it way lower. But I think their prices will keep going up. So if you want that sound, it's got MIDI bass, large bass, holographic sound, near perfect tonality if you like warmth and good bass. It is a wow. It was a wow moment for me in terms of sound. So take what I'm saying in a more complex way than just saying that I'm dissing the IM. I'm not. I'm praising it. It's goddamn phenomenal. But $19,000 is just mindlessness. So that's the Brise Audio Fukagu. It was with Jabin. I've not heard image height like this on IM before. So yeah. The Hex from Misty Craft. So Lee, I met a few years ago. I WhatsApped with him. He's become a more important guy since then. He's become busier since then. He doesn't only have releasing acoustics. Now he's got an investor who's put in money in starting Misty Craft, where he's doing no holds barred tech innovation, tech driven innovations. He's got a Hex IM that's come on $9,000. It's got little diamonds on one of the faceplates. The faceplates look beautiful even despite the diamonds, and with the diamonds they do look pretty. It's got a carrying case made of horse butt leather. Cordovan leather is, of course, more premium. This IM sounds great. It knocks it out of the park. I think it would rival the Fukagu. A lot of people would prefer the sound over Fukagu. It's half the price of Fukagu. So it's a goddamn bargain in that sense. It's $9,000. Again, it's overpriced because these diamonds are actually tiny and probably worthless. But there's 6 driver technologies inside, and it sounds beautifully coherent, and the bass again is beautiful. It's more mid-bass than the Fukagu. The Fukagu is more sub-bass and mid-bass balanced. The mid-bass doesn't sound bloated. It's still very crystalline, the Hex, and it's got air. And the Hex is a masterful achievement, sort of like a milestone in IEM tuning. And I would be hard-pressed to say which I like more, the Hex or the Fukagu or the Hex. Once you get both and just flex. However, all that being said, the Hex and the Fukagu are, I think, at the pinnacle and frontier of IM tech right now, and they are the 2 best IMs of the planet. So there's no confusion about that. I do think the Ace Ventura, the Ventura from Dita Audio, will be the ace in the pack and might upset these 2 a bit because it'll be far lower priced and it's got better timbre. But that being said, the Fukagu at $18,000 and the Hex at $9,000, I do think are pushing and giving you something you might not be getting with other IMs. The hex does look beautiful. I just think those tiny diamonds are probably worthless because I mean they're tiny, they're probably not the highest grade, and the cut and the shine. And if you know diamonds, there's a whole lot of parameters people look at when they invest in diamonds, and I don't even think these are that. I mean, but Lee is a genius, and the hex is a monster. The Fukagu is a monster, and the hex hits it out of the park. Does it sound like the Elysian IEMs? Yes, in terms of its air, but better and different enough that it's got its own personality profile, and it definitely does. It's got a different way of doing mid-range and bass, which is far more romantic and lucid and creamy. Okay, I spent a lot of time on these two. I'll be a little quicker. The Flip Ears Legion is going to be a market disruptor. It's only under, I think it's $880. It sounds like a $2,000 IEM. It's got the greatest implementation of BCD that I've heard, and people who are in the industry have told me this, that they marvel at how they've done BCD. It's extremely bassy, and the bass is visceral. The faceplates look stunning, and I'll have a review on this because I got that IEM in. Amazing. Shout out to Aries, who's just a wonderful guy to work with, owner of Flip Ears. The Forte Ears IEMs were both gorgeous to look at. The best looking IEMs I've ever seen, the Macbeth and the Mephisto. And Ricardo behind it is very erudite, very intellectual, and I loved speaking with him about classical music. The Mephisto is the newer one. It's $2,899. The Macbeth is $4,000 without the super duper cable that they have. They call it Ambition cable. The Macbeth is something I'd use for classical because it's just a little more technical and wider and richer. Mephisto is bassier and more fun, while also having the mid-range beauty of their house sound, the 40 years house sound. The Mephisto is an amazing IEM, and I would get it in. And the faceplates, I think, to me, given my taste, are some of the prettiest I've ever seen in the hobby. The AME Musa was nice. It was lovely. It was creamy. It was mid-rangey. It was mid-bassy. It was thick. It was like an F4 Audio XE6 dialed up with better technicalities and prettier faceplates. A little ostentatious for my tastes. I spoke to Mr. Song, who's behind it. He's lovely. He's Korean, and I love how he presents himself in terms of being very open and fun, loving, and all that, right? And last but not least, I spoke with Crin for a while, and I have a lot of respect for Crinical. I just saw his journey evolve from being the guy who's measured 1,000 IEMs at Zeppelin and elsewhere to then becoming this force in the hobby, to collaborations that were extremely successful, to now his own brand, Crin Ears, and all three of his IEMs are amazing. They're all very different. My favorite was the Meta, which of course is not available anymore, sold out in minutes. The Daybreak was lovely. The Reference was lovely. I mean, those IEMs are just no-brainers. You can just blindly buy them. I do want to give a shout out to Crinical because he somehow presents us with these compellingly priced options in a world of escalating prices. Like he even debates with his suppliers and other people on his team about pricing to keep things down, and he will debate about whether he can even lower it from, let's say, $165 to $150 or what have you, right? So I mean, these are arbitrary numbers I'm just coming up with, but he's very sensitive to pricing, and I think that makes him a breath of fresh air, and he almost constitutes this parallel universe in our hobby where things are just not so crazy in pricing. And I do like my flagship stuff. I will buy Crinical's IEMs just because I respect his work and I want to get them in. I want to review them, and they're very well liked in general. But I do want to give a shout out to what he's doing with his own brand and the pricing, the quality. Each of his IEMs are very, very spacious sounding, which just sounded very premium to me. And I told him that your IEMs sound way more premium than what you're pricing them as. But he will do what he does. So good luck to Crinical. And just to finish it off, I just want to give a big shout out to the Headfight team. They've outdone themselves. They continue to outdo themselves. This CanJam Singapore was the best CanJam I've been to. It was my best Singapore trip. Guys, the audience was so much bigger than I've ever seen in a CanJam. Like last hour of day 2, I couldn't still get a seat because I got my friends in to try different stuff. They couldn't find a seat to try different things. It was all packed. Crazy vibes. People walking up to me, and of course, people recognize me from my channel. The people asking for financial advice, that was very flattering, because some of you know that I'm a financial analyst, advisor, what have you. So that was very flattering. So it was great to see all of you, and I hope more of you come to CanJam Singapore. So keep watching this channel. Give this a like if you like it. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. And I want to see you in CanJam Singapore next year, or any other CanJam if you end up going. I might not, but I definitely want to go to Singapore because it's close to where I live. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye bye.